All right, so what we're going to do right now is talk about how to cut music and still have it sound like it naturally plays from beginning to end. Or, in other words, how to cut music so that we can't hear the seams or so that our audience doesn't know that we cut it down. But let's start with this bluesy song. It is, I believe, something like 4 minutes long. Yeah, it's like over 4 minutes long. Let's say we're doing something shorter. Something we have to do is look at how the music is structured. And generally speaking, for a lot of songs, it's either in beats of 4 or beats of 3, right? Musicians understand this quite well, but non-musicians might struggle at first. But basically, listening to the basic structure of the song, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how the musical phrases and things are grouped into groups of beats of 4, right? So every 4 beats is a musical phrase of some sort. And so what's helpful when cutting music in a way that hides the seams of that cut is to cut in between these groups of 4, as opposed to cutting in the middle of one of these groups of 4. So let's listen to the difference in that. So 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, stop. Okay, so if I stop it right before the next group of 4, right before I count to 1 again, so I take my cut tool and I cut there, and then I cut it, and then I listen again. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if I extract that, then let's listen to what we have. Notice how the music, while there is some disruption in the larger musical phrase that's going on there, in this individual instance, it just smoothly goes into that key change, or not key change, into the chord change, without a very noticeable cut. Right? Now, it could be refined, but just with that simple practice of cutting in between the groups of 4, we have a lot less work to do when trying to clean this up and make it less noticeable. Okay, next thing we need to do is look at what if we have a song that is, I don't know, well, something that has more fluid sounding music, something that has harder seams to cut across, like something like this. Well, let's look at that. Let's drag that into our timeline, and let's cut that. And let's drag this up. Okay, so we have this. Let's leave our intro alone, and let's cut in the middle here. Let's say, because this is fairly repetitive, we see there's a kind of a pattern. There's a quiet ethereal moment, and then it goes into the drum beat added onto that, and then it drops down into that ethereal moment again, up to a drum beat, and then back down, back and forth, right? So let's say we need to cut this down, and a really good way to cut it down is to take out chunks that are repetitive. And so we have this musical phrase here. It's a larger phrase. Let's think of it like a paragraph. We have this whole paragraph of music language going on, and then we switch into a new paragraph. But then we switch back briefly into that old paragraph again and into this larger structure here. So how about we take out this structure here, since it just goes back to that again, and that way we can do the ethereal moment here into the larger drum beat, skip all this and go down into an ethereal moment again, up into the drum beat again, right? So it makes sense. We're just taking out one of the repetitions of that pattern to a certain extent. So let's listen to it and see how it flows already. Okay, that's good to hear because we notice one thing right off. Just like the last song, the beats are in groups of 4. So we can listen again. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Right? We can cut on that group of 4. And then let's go to the end of that pattern into the next part, and let's just cut on the same or similar point in this part of the pattern. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Right? So we cut there, and I'm just using my space bar to start and stop, and when I stop, I'm stopping on the beat. And I'm not trying to time it so that I stop it right before that beat. I just use the rhythm and I stop right on the beat. Okay, so I extract this part. I deleted and moved everything over at the same time. And let's listen just to see what this cut might sound like. Okay, so first off, I noticed that it's a pretty abrupt change, especially more abrupt than it was in the last, in its original pattern, right? So like if I move this over and we re-listen to what was there, it's an abrupt change as well, but it doesn't have the same snappiness as this change that I made. And I could leave it. I don't think the audience would recognize that I edited that, but it bugs me, and I think I'm going to do something that will smooth it out. It's a fairly easy thing to do. I will go into my effects panel and do audio transitions and do a constant power fade there. Now, I can do this because I know that this side and this side are similar in the original pattern that's set up. That what happens after all of this, what I've placed there, is very similar to what was there. And so what I'm doing is I'm fading from one into the other in a way that will kind of briefly merge the two clips together. And we'll see how that sounds. And that it's a very subtle change, but what has happened here is it's smoothed out that transition. It's made it sound a little bit more natural. As opposed to, it's just that slight cut in the audio without that transition there. With the transition there, there's no cut and there's no abrupt sound that happens there in the same way. So that's one way that I try to smooth out the transition. Again, the key here is that right here, what happens after in the original track is very similar to what then I'm placing there instead. So I'm utilizing the patterns that are created by the original artist who created the song to then cover up my edits, right? And I use their work, the patterns that are already created in the structure of the music, to then cover up my edits. I don't need that repetition in there anymore, and so I pull it out.